Before we get into Galaxy Log, I want to show you a brief video that I did. And the video's about, it's kind of like a 50th anniversary thing, where 50 years ago, when I received for a birthday a Edmund Scientific 6-inch f8 reflector, which at that time was a good size telescope for an amateur to have. And even though a couple years earlier I started looking through telescopes, I had a small 60mm refractor, but it wasn't until I got this 6-inch reflector and got it under some dark skies at the time, and some of the first views I got through it that really lit the fire. And so I'll show you the video, and then we'll get into Galaxy Log, which actually this Galaxy Log will kind of go with the video. Well, it was 50 years ago, for my 13th birthday, that my parents knew I was getting more and more interested in astronomy. In 1969, I had a 60mm refractor as my first real telescope. But other than some nice views of the moon, a couple of the planets, and some double stars, the quest for the many great objects beyond the solar system was not really available with this limited aperture of 60mm or 2.4 inches. So in 1971, I received from my parents the Edmunds 6-inch f8 reflector, and here's where the actual fire was lit. Up to this time, all my observing with the 60mm was in our backyard or the school ground across the street. Though reading through some literature, it said best to observe those objects beyond the solar system was to get away from the city or town lights. Well, my great uncle lived outside of town on a huge 50 to 60 acre estate. And some of my friends may know where it is, next to the old Bethel's Dairy. Of course, 50 years ago, that whole area was mostly just farmland, so light pollution was very low, meaning good dark skies. On a very pleasant, clear moonless night in late spring of 1971, my dad took me and the telescope out to my great uncle's. I remember so clearly my first view under those skies was an object that I really wanted to see, called Messier 57, or the Ring Nebula. I found it no problem, and there it was in the eyepiece, a bluish glowing Cheerio ring. Wow. Then I swung the telescope to another Messier object, but this time a galaxy called Messier 106, and the view was amazing, seeing a whole galaxy. I was hooked for life, and eventually getting bigger and better telescopes. It was that magical night, with that 6-inch reflector, that we come to today. So this past Wednesday night, from a dark site, with a newer 6-inch reflector, and also a 4-inch refractor, I celebrated a 50th anniversary with many great views, and ending the night with one final view of the Ring Nebula through the 6-inch reflector. A telescope is an extension of its owner that allows us to peer into the universe and see nature on the grandest scale, with wonders that boggle the imagination. Okay, this is kind of like a special Galaxy Log where with the 50th anniversary thing that I just showed in the video of what really lit the fire, as I say, to become a deep space or a DSO observer. And here's on this recent night that we'll be doing Galaxy Log. I had the 6-inch, the newer 6-inch f5 Newtonian with a 4-inch refractor out together. And here's my first view of the night of M106, which was kind of like the really first time I actually got a nice view that night 50 years ago with the old 6-inch Edmunds. And we think, well, even with my 60mm, did I ever get a good view of the Andromeda Galaxy? And I viewed the Andromeda Galaxy from home in town with a 60mm, and of course there wasn't a great view. So I kind of really, this was the first time I've actually got a really nice view 50 years ago, that night, of a galaxy, and it happened to be M106. So here, on May 12th, I did the first view of the night in kind of a celebration with the newer 6-inch, the 6-inch f5 with a 10mm. Right? So gave me 76 magnification, and really was a really nice view of M106. Really brought back a lot of memories. So that's what this is. First view, great, really a great object. I've done it in Galaxy Log before, and for many of you who've seen M106 realize how great of a galaxy it really is. So it was really neat to kind of relive going back in time and 50 years ago, and seeing an object 50 years later through the same size telescope under very similar skies. This dark site that I viewed this with on May 12th, with similar skies to what I remember seeing 50 years ago, just outside of the town I grew up in. We head into Virgo, near Epsilon Virgo, which is right here. And not too far from there, if you're using a non-go-to telescope, if you're just doing star hopping. And it's a pair of galaxies, and it's NGC 4754 and NGC 4762, this beautiful thin edge-on galaxy. And if we do the near view image here, and here it is. Of course, the date is 5/12/2021. Here are the particulars of these two galaxies. 4762 being the larger and brighter galaxy, also a little closer to us. NGC 4754 is bright also, but not nearly as large. And I viewed this with the 4-inch f6.47 refractor with a 9mm eyepiece. It gave me about 73 magnification. Sky conditions were very good at this time. So here's NGC 4754, and in the 4-inch refractor, it showed a nice, fairly bright stellar nucleus and kind of an oval shape to it. And with averted vision, it seemed to get a little larger. But then we go here to the east into this nice nest of stars, of these 3 stars, and this beautiful edge-on galaxy, which is 4762. This is a very striking edge-on galaxy. And with the 4-inch refractor, it showed extended well, particularly with averted vision. The core area, the central area, was very bright. What was really neat, though, is seeing the contrast between the 2 shapes of these galaxies in large telescopes. This is one of the best views in the Virgo cluster. It's just a terrific view. But I thought that the 4-inch refractor did a really good job, and definitely showed the striking difference between the 2 galaxies. Okay, our next galaxy, we head to Ursa Major, actually near the end of the handle of the Big Dipper, near Eta, which is right here. And it's a nice elongated galaxy called NGC 5448. Fairly easy star hop. You can follow this line of stars here, and it's actually situated, here's 13 Boötes. So it's actually almost between 13 Boötes and Eta Ursa Major. So let's look at the near view image. And here it is. Now, a couple years ago, I did a Galaxy Log with for this galaxy, and with a much larger telescope with a 12.5-inch dial. And of course, there was a difference. It was actually at the same dark side also, so similar sky conditions. But here are the particulars of this galaxy. It's 11th magnitude. The surface brightness is 13. It's a fairly decent size. Here's its distance. And this is with the 6-inch f5 newt with a 10mm eyepiece at 76 magnification. Now, the differences between a 12.5-inch dot and a 6-inch for this galaxy, in the 12.5, the core stood out much more, much brighter, of course, with a stellar nucleus. And here with the 6-inch, you can see it's a fairly large core. It stood out fairly well. The galaxy is elongated. Lies in a nice star field. But it was interesting to see, the difference between the 12.5 and the 6-inch from the same dark side under very similar sky conditions. But this galaxy here is really a nice galaxy to go for, and it's easy to find. And it stood out fairly well, I thought, in the 6-inch. From a darker site, it would actually, of course, be much better. So, of the sites that I use, this is actually the lesser of the sites that I use. So, it just happens to be close by. But yeah, I thought it was a really nice view of a really nice elongated spiral galaxy. So, good one to go for. Next, we head into Boötes, not too far from our previous galaxy, and it's an elliptical galaxy. Here's Gamma. It's going to be right off Gamma Boötes. It's an elliptical galaxy called NGC 5557, which is right here. And if we have the near view image, and here it is. Here's the particulars of this galaxy. It's 11th magnitude. It's a high surface brightness, like a lot of ellipticals have. Fairly small. Here's its distance, so it's out there. With a 6-inch and a 6mm eyepiece, so we jumped up the magnification at 127. And of course, like I said, the sky conditions are very good. Now, this galaxy stood out very well with the 6. Very impressed with it. Had a really bright stellar nucleus surrounded by a bright core area, and then the very vision, it really grew. You could really see an outer part of it. Lies in a nice star field. I think this could be easily seen in smaller scopes. I think the 4-inch refractor, I could have picked it up also, but the 6-inch gave it a really nice view. And like I mentioned, a lot of elliptical galaxies, are like this, where their magnitude and their surface brightness are fairly close. So the surface brightness of these guys usually stand out pretty well. So it's an easy galaxy for a small telescope. It's a nice view to pick up a galaxy. The constellation, it has a lot of great galaxies in it. Particularly if you're using scopes, say this size on up. There's a really a lot of galaxies to view in this constellation. But this is one of them, and I think even with a smaller scope, it should be no problem to see. All right, our last galaxy for this galaxy log, we head into the dragon, Draco, and it's the galaxy NGC 5949. Neat little spiral galaxy, and it was actually, for me, more of a challenge here with the 6. I wanted to see if I could pick up this small spiral galaxy. So let's look at the near view image of it. Here it is. Here's the particulars. And this is the faintest galaxy that I viewed this night. It's small. It's a small galaxy, and it's relatively, well, it is close. It's 21 million light years. With the 6-inch, I used a 5mm eyepiece, and then we pumped the power up a little bit at 152 magnification. And here's the galaxy here. No, it showed as an elongated disk. It didn't show any stellar nucleus or so. It was pretty much even towards the center or the central part of the galaxy. Maybe a hidden modeling a little bit, um, but for me, this was more of a challenge for this telescope at this dark site, and showing that you can pick up a number of galaxies. You think 12th magnitude, yeah, the surface brightness is fairly high, but it is small. But my thinking is here is to show this galaxy that with a 6-inch reflector, which is the scope that really 50 years ago that turned me on to deep space and then particularly galaxies, that there's a lot of galaxies out there to view with a 6-inch telescope. Maybe even smaller telescopes, like say the 4-inch refractor. You think of all the brighter galaxies that are out there, throughout the year, spring, summer, even summer, fall, of course, and winter. But there's a lot of galaxies out there to view, even with a telescope like this. And you can get some really nice views. Even though this is a 12th magnitude galaxy at a dark site, that's, it's not bad. It's a decent dark site. But the galaxy stood out well. I mean, it wasn't hard to see. It had a nice star field, so it gave a really nice view of the galaxy overall. But just like I just mentioned, there's so many out there. There's so many galaxies that are brighter. So if you don't have a very large telescope, and if you're looking for something in this size range for transit to a dark site, or if you can't handle a heavier, bigger telescope, a 6-inch telescope can really bring in a lot of galaxies and beyond, as far as if you go into other parts of deep space observing, whether it's nebulas, star clusters, and so on. A lot can be seen out there with a 6-inch telescope. So for me, this galaxy log is kind of special. Like I said, it's 50 years of really 100% deep space observer, and as we all know, particular galaxies, and that it was a 6-inch telescope that set this course for me 50 years ago. So, well, that's it for this galaxy log. Clear dark skies and happy galaxy observing. This is a summary of the May 12th, 2021 galaxy log. First, let's talk about the dark site. Originally, I was hoping to get to a much darker site. Some of my observing buddies in the club were able to get to much darker places like Cherry Springs, which have been great to go to. But for some reasons, I had to stay close to home, and so I headed to the local dark site, which is about a 30-minute drive from here. And on good nights, when the sky is transparent and the seeing conditions are good, steady, you can get some really nice views there, which I did. I also thought it was interesting, though, that I was able then to take the smaller scopes out, particularly the 6-inch. And as I talked about in the video, this kind of anniversary thing with the Edmund Scientific 6-inch reflector, which I received 50 years ago, and some of the first views under dark skies, which I mentioned in the video again, that the skies at this dark site in 2021 would be very similar to what was seen 50 years ago from my great uncle's place a few miles outside of town, which I grew up in. Okay, the telescopes I had out this night was a 4-inch refractor on the left and a 6-inch reflector on the right. The refractor is an Explorer Scientific First Light 4-inch f6.47 on a twilight nano mount with a Roger Quick Finder to help locate the objects. I like the Roger Quick Finders a lot. The reflector is a GSO 6-inch f5, and that's on an Explore Scientific Twilight 1 mount. This is a nice pairing. The mount handles it very well with the short tube, the shorter tube, and a fairly light tube. And it has the slow motion controls, so it's very comfortable. Actually sit in an observing chair to observe. The eyepieces, well, for NGC 4754 and 4762, that was a Celestron 9mm XL LX. For M106 and NGC 5448, that's the Pentex 10mm XW, terrific eyepiece. For NGC 5557, that's the Teleview 6mm Delos, which I've mentioned before is a favorite eyepiece. And for NGC 5949, that was a Celestron 5mm XL LX.